And welcome back, rugby fans. Of course, this is episode 85 of the Rugby Rant podcast show. If you're tuning in for the first time, a quick reminder, my name is Ty Braga, host for today's activities alongside Rob, the Hammer Hammerschmidt, and Scott, the big guy Ferraro. We are the team from the Rugby Rant podcast show. So what's it all about? Well, I want to be able to remind you and our viewers that we're going to be sharing in a moment our Around the Pitch news. This has become a very popular one with fans as they get to be able to learn something new, maybe for the first time, hearing something that flew a little under the radar, but we took a closer look and we think you should as well. So here's how it works. I and the rest of the gang are going to shoot quick fire round of what is important, give you a few tidbits of why it's important, and then we make our way around the screen and we will share with you in Around the Pitch what you need to know. So let's So let's open it up first with Rob Hammerschmidt.
Thank you, Ty. I just like the theme of this: young guys, young Americans, but particularly young guys in the league. And so this weekend, after week 5, we had 9 draftees from the 2021 draft on rosters. Combine that with 7 from the 2020 draft, and you have a grand total of 18 draftees playing in the league on starting rosters this past weekend. And some of the highlights for that, we had Colson Warner, LU product, gets his first try. We had Eric Naprosky gets his first try with Dallas. And then we had some pretty good stuff by Alejandro Torres, setting up a try for Dallas. And Lopetti just, killing it again. Remind everybody, look
week
out
after week.
He's going to be the rookie of the year. Mark my words. So a really good weekend from our draftees. It's good to see.
Yeah, and it's fantastic to be able to see that talent being brought in, but not only being brought in, they're earning those spots and they're delivering with those tries and putting points on the board. So they're making an impact. And I remember just a little while ago when the draft was first introduced to Major League Rugby, would they be rugby ready by the time they actually hit those sides? Well, the answer is clearly yes right now, as you can see so many of them finding a firm place in their rosters. So great to be able to see that. Thanks for that. Good start from Rob Hammerschmidt. Let's swing it over to Scott Ferrara.
Let's get hot, baby. We're talking about Kat Roche. She's been assigned to the TikTok Women's Six Nations, right? So over the past 8 months, she's had her test match debut. She's refereed, obviously, officiated the MLR. She was in the middle in an MLR match last year, and she's been officiating Rugby World Cup qualifiers throughout the 8 months. She was announced as one of the officials, and her first match will come, I believe, in the opener, Wales versus Ireland in the opener on March 26th. USA women doing great things in rugby.
Right. And it doesn't even have to be, as a player, there's great administrators, there's great officiators. And with her, I mean, I first saw her as an AR out in Rugby Town, USA, and how quickly she has gained the right type of experience and excelled and surpassed great expectations to be able to achieve that honor. But you could also argue that it's noteworthy and news enough that TikTok is also sponsoring rugby too, right?
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's good to see a social media network push the women's game, and especially Six Nations. It's going to be great rugby. So
yeah, and then when you think about how many times we've said social media is going to be one of the greatest tools for us to use to be able to reach a new audience. Perfect match, right? Yeah. Wonderful marrying those two concepts there. Thanks for highlighting that. One of the ones that I wanted to be able to dive in and staying on the theme of women's rugby, because of course it is relevant this month as a part of Women's History Month. The LA Guiltinis have chosen to be able to put on what they call the LA Festival of Rugby. So this March 13th, make sure that you are there to be enjoying rugby all day long. And why I say this is that they have invited USA Sevens and Australian Sevens to battle against one another in this showcase. It will be a wonderful opportunity to see the highest level of Sevens rugby for the women's game. It'll be an entertaining brand. I think the Coliseum is going to be a perfect platform to be able to showcase it. But what's important about this, though, too, is that the USA and, of course, Australia are currently in their preparation to meet later, potentially, who knows, maybe in the final of the next Sevens Rugby World Cup held later this year in Cape Town, South Africa, come September. So this is a wonderful way to be able to engage audiences early on and highlight the skills that are available. So kudos to the LA Giltinis for embracing the women's game and doing so on one of the best stages possible in North America. Rob, what else do you have to share?
So interesting phenomenon. It was brought out by the MLR after, again, week 5, this week's action. And interestingly, the oldest player to ever play in the league at 42 years old, Oreen Ie, for the LA Giltinis, came on as a fly half injury cover for Luke Burton. Burton got injured, I guess, in the warm-up. Ie, an assistant coach, had to come in to fill that gap. And then in the same game, the youngest player in MLR history jumps on the pitch at 18 years old. Kahanu Koi comes in as on the sub roster for the LA Giltinis. So interesting, the oldest and the youngest come on the pitch in the same game for the same team. Pretty cool phenomenon to see.
Yeah, that is excellent. I mean, it goes just to show how diverse the league really is. So a wonderful highlight there. I really like it. The oldest and the youngest in one game. You might not see that again for quite some time. So thanks for highlighting that one there, Rob. Let's hand it over to Scott Ferrara.
Well, we're still cooking, and just so you know, the facts I'm going to shoot you real quick are brought to you by our friend Bill Baker at Eagles Overseas. I'm talking women's rugby again. Katie Benson scores a try this weekend. Charlie Jacoby scores a try this weekend. Kate Zachary scores a try this weekend. Hope Rogers scored 2 tries this weekend. Janine Didevo, 4 tries this weekend for Exeter Chiefs. And this month, Alev Kelter was named Player of the Month for the Premier 15. So, I mean, American women are just killing it right now over in the UK.
Yeah. And you know, it's wonderful to be able to see them get that type of experience to be able to play internationally. It's a wonderful setting. It's great to be able to see teams of that stature inviting players from this side. You know, we'll be talking a little bit more about that in our additional rant, in fact. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we have an opportunity where you can get even more content from us here on the Rugby Rant, besides viewing us on TRN or catching us on any of the major podcast platforms. We have an opportunity for you, as some of our most dedicated supporters, to be able to follow us on patreon.com/Rugby Rant Pod. And the reason I bring this up is for as little as only $3, less than a beer, you can enjoy some great content where we'll be diving into this topic into detail in one of our additional rants, talking about how we can grow the women's game here in North America. So make sure you check us out again under the handle @Rugby Rant Pod on all social media, but in particular, check us out on our new home at patreon.com/Rugby Rant Pod. And for only $3, you can get additional interviews and more rants from us here on the Rugby Rant team. And
I just like to interrupt. I apologize. I have a little bit of a concern. All the women's rugby talk by the big guy, Mrs. Big Guy might get a little jealous if she jumps onto Patreon and gets all this women's rugby content out of the big guy. So, you know,
listen,
want to be careful.
Mrs. Big Guy will gladly hand me over to anybody at this point in our life.
yes, take him.
I've been there, my friend. I've been there.
I like it. All right. So the last piece that I wanted to be able to share is building on something we had spoken about a couple of episodes back. And that was the introduction of what we can best describe as the disciplinary record tracker. So if you're not really sure, it's a great place to be able to go and view additional information on the players, what their suspensions may be. And you can get that all at majorleague.rugby/disciplinary. You'll see it come up on the screen in just a moment. But more importantly, wanted to draw attention to something that we had spoken about as a team here on the Rugby Rant. And it was in one of the matches where the player Farnana Schultz, number 6 for OGDC, had been involved in what we could best describe was a moment of madness, as he had thrown a couple of heavy blows to a player right on the try line. And then I believe it was you, Scott, that identified that if he had just gone to be able to play his position, they might have stopped the try, but instead he chose, a moment of madness and passion overflowed, and a few punches were flowing. We had asked the question back in our conversation about whether TMO is effective right now. Why did they not bring that up at the time? We expected it to be a citing later. It was, in fact, cited by a committee, and the result was that Fainana Schultz will be out for 5 weeks. And the reason that it normally would have been 3 weeks, by the way, but it was extended to 5 weeks because of his previous disciplinary record in MLR carrying through from the past season. And that means that he'll only be eligible for his next matchup on April 15th when they take on Utah at Utah. So that is around the pitch. And as you know, as a fan, you can continue to be able to get more news from us by following us online under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod. And again, don't forget about following us on patreon.com/Rugby Rant Pod. And you can get all the extras. We'll be back in just a moment.
Tighthead Brewing Company is not just Chicago's premier location to watch rugby and enjoy quality ales and lagers. It is also a great place to enjoy local acts performing live music every Thursday and Saturday nights. Additionally, their Wednesday night trivia nights are something not to be missed. Tighthead is located in Mundelein, Illinois, and easily accessible for many Chicagoans, as it is just steps away from the metro. Owner Bruce Durr and the Tighthead staff are dedicated to ensure your microbrew experience is as tight as their beers. Bruce's love for rugby extends beyond the origin of his brewery's name. Tighthead is committed to supporting the rugby community. This includes his support for Lake County RFC and our own Rugby Rant podcast show. Tighthead's tap room is like the familiar rugby clubhouse in which friends and teammates can meet, socialize, and enjoy the wide variety of brews on tap. Regardless of whether your palate enjoys a good IPA or a dark barrel-aged brew, Tighthead can deliver. Hey, Chicago, when you want rugby, Tighthead Brewing Company will satisfy your thirst. Tighthead, it's worth more than a try.
And welcome back, rugby fans. Of course, it's that time in the show where we need to be able to put ourselves and our guests to the test in what we like to be able to call the Rugby Rant debates. More importantly, a quick reintroduction to the team. If you're just tuning in, my name is Ty Braga, your host for today's activities, of course, alongside Rob, the Hammer Hammerschmidt, and Scott, the Big Guy Ferrara. But more importantly, it's time to introduce who they will be battling here in our Rugby Rant debate. And we welcome back to the show, familiar face to the rant is Kyle the Mouth Ferguson, first brought to us by way of the Rugby Shop and now representing Eversio Wellness. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Happy to be back, guys. Thanks for having me, and hopefully we can have a fun time and I can win again because I think that happened last time. So.
Did you win Canada? He's won before, and we never got our twigs.
Damn it. Yeah, he was supposed to send us hockey sticks, man.
You're supposed to send us hockey sticks.
It wasn't me that was supposed to send them. But we'll leave that alone.
Blame it on the delivery system from your former. Okay,
you got
it. which now brings me to the present day. You, of course, being a familiar favorite to the rugby circles. When you found yourself a new home with Eversio Wellness, you reached out to us and you said, guys, you got to get involved with this new gang up here. They're supporting, health and wellness through mushroom extract and so much more. You know what? I'm not the guy to be able to share the greatest value of why it's important. So why don't we just throw it back to you, Kyle?
I think you were doing a pretty good job, though. You could run with this almost. So a little bit about us. So Eversio Wellness, Canadian company, Canadian owned and operated, which is very cool. Husband and wife own us. Biggest thing I think for everybody out there with these products within this circle is the energy and the inflammation, right? So those are two things everybody's looking for. So this is a natural way to get that. Our Awaken product has 3 mushrooms in it: lion's mane, cordyceps, and turkey tail, which will definitely, kickstart you, give you that extra jump, and as well as get the body under control. And it's definitely the product that changed my life and brought me to this company today. So give it a shot. Use the Rant Guys code and see how you feel.
Right. And on that note, the code is RANT15 for an additional 15% off anything in your basket. And by the way, I believe there's also free shipping once you reach the threshold. So why not cram as much as you can into that basket for one great purchase with 15% off and free shipping anywhere in the continental US. Inflammation, we want to be able to get that under control as a rugby player. The aches and bruises might disappear a little faster using some of the Eversio Wellness products. And again, visit visit them at EversioWellness.com to learn more about that. So again, Kyle, thank you for that. And thank you for being here again to be able to take on Rob and Scott in the familiar format of the rugby debates. But more importantly, what are we going to talk about here today, gentlemen? Well, this is the interesting one that people have been asking us to be able to include more of in our shows here on TRN and our social media. And that's to be able to discuss, dissect, debate. What we do is rugby, and we're talking about the past week's action in MLR. What was the best game? What was the worst game? As a fan, what do we think was the most exciting? Which game do we think was lacking? And of course, we will debate ins and outs and everything in between here on the Rugby Rant podcast show. A quick reminder for those of you that might not be familiar, each one of these gentlemen has only a small window to be able to rant on the topic. And come the end of this debate, we will figure out who has put the best points forward, who has made the greatest case for or against whatever the topic may be. And we're going to start this round, as we usually do, with our guest. And that means it's you, Kyle, the Mount Ferguson. You're up first. What should fans at home know about the best and worst game, in your opinion, from this past week?
Having looked back at the week, I think I'm going best game of the week is the Gilchrist Cup. So I'm going AG's and Guiltini's as a pure rugby guy. I think that was a fantastic game. I think I called AG's last year. I might have been a year out on that, because on this podcast a year ago, I believe I picked them to win. They didn't pull it off. Their cousin down the road did, but I think they look solid, and I think that game was a good one. We were speaking about the refereeing beforehand, which was on par, as well as everything else within that game to me. AG's defense, second to none right now. They're stopping a great offense in LA over there, which is fantastic. So yeah, I have a soft spot for him too, having worked around the league. So go AGs. I'm going with worst game of the week as the blowout of the week, just because as a pure rugby enthusiast and being around the game a long time, there wasn't so much to be happy with in Utah. And who did they even play? So anyways,
I don't know if it was this or if he was
shot called. Watch out, Rick Collins.
Shots fired.
A little bit of both. But anyways, just within that game and for the week, I think that one for me just had to be not worth wasting your time in. And if you had to pick one for the week from me, it'd be AG's LA all day.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of people that are definitely going to agree with you. I mean, it's traditionally, this is always going to be a great matchup. Doesn't matter what league it was in, but when you put that team that I wouldn't really say is underperformed, but definitely you could have expected to be able to go a lot farther, was the AGs pinned against the success of MLR championship that LA had. So, you know, there's you can kind of argue, well, who's got more to prove, who's got more expectation behind them, but definitely people expected it to be an interesting matchup because of that universal influence of Gilchrist in ownership in both camps. I like the way you referred to it, the cousin down the road. So
that they don't like to name, I don't think, and it's the long lost cousin. So
right.
In Chicago, we say Utah, that's the cousin over there.
Over there.
Right there.
Over there.
Yeah, my cousin Daryl, my other cousin Daryl, my other cousin Daryl.
No, that's
Whoa.
That's South Africa, bro. I don't know.
So you also identified Utah as a disappointing matchup, and you know it's been kind of disappointing for them so far. And I believe they were second in their conference last season, guys. Remind me. So nevertheless, they managed to be able to pull off some really exciting finishes last season that isn't connecting for them this season. And that was honestly my fear from the start. So it's interesting that you brought out those two. Definitely some highlights and lowlights from Kyle that he identified. Let's hand it over to Scott, the big guy Ferrara.
Well, we're still cooking. I'm going with my the best match of the weekend here. I'm going Rugby ATL over SaberCats, Rugby ATL 29, SaberCats 22. And I think the first half score wasn't indicative as much as Houston was playing well. They just had what we here call the NOLA problem. They got down and couldn't score. And then all of a sudden, the second half, they turned on, right? And even almost overcoming a yellow card. Rob's laughing at that, but it's something we talk about that happens to happen to Nola often, and it happened to the Houston SaberCats in this match. And Houston playing one of their best matches against Dallas a couple weeks ago and almost losing to Dallas. So I mean, it's one of those games where it had its ups, its downs. The ATL played the way the ATL does. The thing I liked about it was the physicality. Man, a guy I talk about often when he was on New York, and I'm going to talk about him again this season, is Will Leonard. This dude is drilling people, and I'm talking coming in from the center, coming into the gain line. He made about 3 or 4 big hits, and also was jackling the ball out there. I mean, you don't see many centers go to do that. You know what I mean? So he was coming up to make the tackle because he knows Houston has a deadly attack. So let's talk about my worst game of the week. I'm actually I'm disagreeing with Kyle here. I say the AG's Giltini's match was the worst match, and this is why. I have a completely different take on it. The rugby was decent. AG's played a terrible first half. They had a lot of handling errors. They had a lot of penalties. And if you're coming into the season now, it's week 5. There's kind of been a name built up around some of these teams, and you're watching on television. I didn't think the rugby looked that good from the AGs, and the Giltinis could get nothing going. The AGs stifled them on defense. I think for a newer rugby fan that might be coming from the 7s, it wasn't as exciting. And then obviously second half, AGs turned it on. LA's starting to make some breaks, even though they didn't score after those kicks. And the second half wasn't indicative of how bad the first half looked on television. And the only reason I'm bringing it up, that was a big debate amongst fans, is the looks on television recently. So,
yeah, I'm going to jump right onto that point, though, and build on it with the AG's LA game. And with the AGs, I feel like, they started slow. I mean, it was 9-0 by this end of the half. But I know that they came back with 3 points, and then they quickly managed to put the try on top of that, which turned it to 10-9. And only at that point that I feel like it became an interesting game for me in particular, right? Because now the race was a little bit closer. But it took a long time for Austin to find their groove, so to speak. And I feel like I've seen that in 1 or 2 matches before. I couldn't tell you exactly which ones right now, but it seems like come the second half, whatever the stirring speech may be or the changes that are made, they're more effective in the second half than they are in the first. And it might be because, when we had Sam Harris, he said one of the things he would focus on this season was not only was having a greater offensive strategy and converting those opportunities into points, but the depth as well in those positions that surely shows in the second half when fresh legs come on. But one that I felt had a really great matchup was Dominguez. He was actually picked as an MLR All-Star for this past week. So it's great to be able to see a transplant from another side at NOLA crossover to then shining in those moments. Mooneyham as well, still pretty consistent. So it seems to me that their offense is certainly better, but I don't know why it's not firing on all cylinders from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let's hand it over to Rob Hammerschmidt. What have you got to share?
So I was really twisted on this one because, and quite frankly, obviously I watched the NOLA match, and being a close affair, I thought that one for me edged out the Rooney New England match. And I didn't get to watch a ton of the Rooney New England match. I was on the road, but the fact that, there was a lot of scoring in the Rooney New England match, back and forth affair, a lot of tries scored, but and maybe for me that's what took a second seat to the NOLA match is a little bit of a lack of defensive structure. The NOLA Seattle match had a much better defensive structure, and while there wasn't as many lead changes, it was really a tight affair from the very beginning. A 25-24 match. Again, a couple of lead changes. And the game winner right at the end. I mean, NOLA was down right at the 78th minute, and penalties awarded. Thankfully, our things have changed a little bit, at least in that game for NOLA. They were awarded a penalty to take the lead, and Carmeyer slotted it. So it had the feel of a much more well-structured game because of solid defense and some, kicks made the difference. And possession territory scrums, lineouts were very close with both teams. So I thought it was a very well-defended match, and I thought it was very well-balanced.
Yeah, I got to say, NOLA, that last-minute points ruined my perfect Grand Slam opportunity on Super Brew. Ruined it.
Here's the thing with Rob. He was talking about the Rooney New England match and saying about defense. There was a ton of defense. I watched it live. I think you just didn't see that because a lot of their scoring plays were either on transition, so it looked like a free running play, or you just had numbers. You got 10 numbers, or you got one breakthrough that kind of made a move. So I don't think it was necessarily defense because at certain points the score was stagnant. So I think it's one of those things where it was kind of misleading on that. Not to say I definitely would say no, the New Orleans win was definitely a better match, but I'm just pointing that out there.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Although, some of the highlights that I saw in broken play, the defensive structure is broken down. And to me, that's the difference. When you look at the international game, that's one of the things that really differentiates international game from, the Prem or other high level club matches is that transition and defense is there, right? That your defensive structures are tight and they can hold tight even when there's transition. I think for me, the other thing, that opening kick was glorious as Sam Windsor's kick was into the corner. I mean, where was the opposing wing? Like, I couldn't see him on the screen. Now, you probably saw him obviously live, but he was nowhere to be seen. So it's like, to me, that defense was missing in some of those key plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to have that everywhere, and I think that's one of the problems where when we watch international teams and they're like there's no defense in the MLR. There is. I just don't think people are seeing it because they get those plays where people are caught off guard.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point you bring up, though, and this has been one that we've spoken about here. It's been spoken about in numerous rugby circles, is that the question is MLR more offense-focused or more defense-focused, right? And I feel like there's been a little bit more of a balance this time. We've had some close matches. Seattle was another close match, and kudos to them. They've certainly turned things around from what last year's performance was, and likewise for San Diego, but they're and when you see a match that's close as one or 3 points difference, that's exciting rugby, regardless whether it might be a 40-point scoreline. And you see several changes in leads, as Rob pointed out. And when I started this conversation, when I started this debate, I always try to be able to think about it. What does it mean to the fan? The entertainment value. And we as, hardened rugby fans can kind of look at the intricacies, but I imagine it has to be a pretty exciting product regardless, because if you are a fan being introduced to rugby for the first time in the North American landscape, what do you want to see? You want to see the most attractive moment of that match, which is every try scoring chance. Kyle, wouldn't you agree?
100%. And that's where you could even turn the Utah Dallas game I wasn't a fan of it, but as a new rugby person, lots of points, lots of scoring, right? All that kind of stuff is also positive. So to your point, I think it's an interesting way that everybody looks at it a little different, but then again, Nola and Rooney going at it over here as usual. So you just let them go.
Well, I think I talk about entertainment. I mean, the Oscar goes to Josh Larson on the Free Jacks. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No.
Kololo and Josh get tied up or Josh ties up Kololo and Kololo grabs his shirt and Josh goes, and falls back and grabs his face. And of course it's to the back of Scott Green. So Scott Green turns around and he's on the ground with his face. And it's watching it live. It looked like, because it was on the other side of the field, that he got punched. And as I'm talking to some people who are watching it on TRN, they go, 1, he never got touched. 2,
and the Oscar goes to.
Yeah, exactly. And the Oscar goes to. And then apparently what I was told was Scott Green turned around and told him, well, you started it. He didn't touch you, and that was fair play. So no card.
Get up, you baby. Yeah, I mean, what is this? It's not soccer, right? Isn't that the famous quote from Nigel Owens?
Exactly. But it was funny to see, because in the stands we were like, how come nobody's being sent off with a card? And then 4 hours later, we're watching the replay. We're like, he never even touched him. It was great.
Yeah, so I love that saying, though, and I got nothing against soccer fans here. It's not a jibe at them, but it is kind of comical. So the difference between rugby and soccer, and you guys might have heard a different version of this. Soccer is 90 minutes of play pretending that you're hurt. Rugby is 80 minutes pretending you're not.
Absolutely. It was funny gamesmanship, and it was interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was also going to add, we've been talking about some of the ways that our teams are scoring. And one of the things that I really appreciated, and again, it wasn't even my team that did the scoring, but in that Seattle NOLA game, that 8-man pick from Reichard Hadding that sprung a try. I mean, how often the art of the 8-man pick has almost gone away to some degree over the last probably decade of rugby. And it was really cool, in spite of the fact that it was against my team. It's really great to see a great 8-man pick and an athletic 8-man score that try. So I really enjoyed that piece. For me, that was entertaining.
Stranger to the same thing, right? You know, he's managed to poach a couple of balls from the back and pick and drive. But you're right, man. These are like, and maybe that's why I'm now loving the fact that Seattle is finding some form again, because it's kind of like they're going back to some of the strengths that they once had, and it's starting to show. And as teams begin to mature, and you said this word, it felt like a little bit more of a structured play that you'd hope to have seen from NOLA last season, you know, with their discipline issues and things like that. And it comes to be so important on those crucial moments in the game, especially when the points are so close. And I love to be able to see teams that have found a continuity in their roster, and they can build upon the success of one season onto the next season. And we're starting to see that in a lot of different places. But a lot of people had criticisms when they initially heard that the SaberCats were bringing in South African influence, and with that, a lot of South African talent who traditionally have been criticized for slowing down the game. So, but yet I personally am not seeing that. I'm seeing a variety of play from them. We're still seeing exciting matches. We're seeing them, although SaberCats only has a 2-3 record at the moment, it doesn't necessarily reflect their improvement and the quality of the team, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
I agree with that. And I think what they're doing is they're doing the things that South Africa does well. They're good up front in the pack. They're good on the set piece. I think the team has embraced what the better teams in the league do now: ATL, New England, Rooney, LA, Seattle, where you have your Northern Hemisphere front pack and your Southern Hemisphere dynamic back line.
Right.
And I think they realize that that's the way to go.
So do you think that that's the way to go? If it aim for the rugby fan to be able to enjoy more rugby and be more entertained by the product that we provide in North America, to just keep having that balance, or should it just be more about score? Well,
I think for the team has to worry about their performance on the field and winning. So I think the balance is what's going to make them win games, because if you can do all of those things and be well-rounded, you can find the weakest part of the opposition's defense. For obviously fans, to bring in new fans, it's about the scoring, and things like the Sam Windsor kick that actually converted and not being offsides to Andrew Coe is going to be a big play that they should be showing on TRN. Just like, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Waka Bowden does a chip kick where he gets completely wasted on the tackle, and I forgot who picked it up to score. You know, we got to champion those types of play, and definitely, but I do think there is a balance there that gets you a win versus being, this all out, just kind of run team. You know what I mean?
I'm going to take the opportunity to shift gears here, gentlemen, as we move into the latter part of this piece here. And I'm going to throw it over to Rob for this one first. Who do you feel so far out of the teams playing has had the least attractive rugby so far?
I think you have to go with one of the wooden spoons, and that would be OGDC. I just think they just haven't got things firing on all cylinders. I think what they're missing is Jason Robertson, right? He was that linchpin that was able to spring some of their talent in the midfield, spring them out. And, obviously Danny Tusitala, but I think Tusitala without Robertson's being asked to, he's taking on too much. It's not that he's being asked to do too much. He's taking on too much for himself, and being asked to be more dynamic than he needs to be. And perhaps that's to the detriment. He's a tremendous and wonderful player, and I love watching him, but I just think he's trying to take too much on his shoulders. And we haven't seen the best of OGDC so far.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who definitely agree, but if you just look at the record, it certainly shows evidence of that. So let me share a few interesting points about OGDC, or Glory DC. After 5 matches, end up with a big fat 0 in the win column. So that's certainly 5 losses that they had not planned for. And yes, they've had some games at home too. So it might sting even more if you count the home and away, a part of that too. So they're stuck with a big fat 0 on the scoreboard so far, which even Dallas, of course, being a first timer to this league and having their own struggles of trying to be able to source a head coach last minute, and the struggles with visas and entries from Australia, they've still got 2 points on the board. And they've had one or two really great finishes that have allowed them to be able to get a bonus point inside of 7 for losing inside of 7. Yeah, it's a consolation, but I tell you what, points on the board is points on the board. It's way better than a 0. I tell you what, I'd much rather lose a game 50-3 than 50-0.
And I pointed to it back in my Around the Pitch segment, but at least I could say that Dallas is getting a lot of young American players on the pitch, and
sure,
Naprosky and some of the other guys that
right. One of the great draft picks. You've got Tellis, you've got Naprosky as well,
right.
Sarkoni, I think,
Torres.
as well.
Yeah, I think you go the other way though with OGs. I think they're lacking as a defensive captain out there. There's nobody copping that defense to say. I mean, the amount of gaps in their defensive line and a lot of these scoring plays that happen, you're just like, how do you not have the line set up correctly? And I could see, if it's happening the first 2 or 3 matches, okay, you're working with people again, guys moved around, it's still a new league. You have a lot of turnover, whatever. But by match 4 and 5, we're still seeing the same deficiencies in the defense. And to me, that's a leadership on the field on whose responsibility it is to make the call and put the person where they're supposed to be put.
To that point, though, and Scott, thank you for bringing it up. I think it's a really, really good point for fans to be able to know. That defensive record, let me share what it is for OGDC right now. So currently they are in possession of the title of having the second worst defense with 206 points scored against them thus far by the end of week 5. However, they also happen to have the worst offense with a score of 76.4, which gives them a points differential of 130. The only one closest to them is Dallas with 132 points differential to the negative, of course, although they managed to be able to come away with 2 bonus points in that journey. So it still sets them above OGDC, even though it's only a points difference of 2. And while these are only just stats and they certainly aren't the full story and they aren't defined by them, you'd have to imagine that if OGDC are still to come out with a respectable season, the next few games have to be a win.
I was going to say, I think you're looking at two different teams as well, right? OGDC, I don't think anybody saw them going 0-5 here, like with that team that they have over there, right? Like I didn't see that coming after last season. I thought mid-pack, maybe even top half, right? Like, whereas Dallas being, I'm only bringing these 2 up because they were spoken about, but Dallas playing the younger guys, right? They've had some issues. We've seen that come through with the head coaching and the visas and stuff like that, right? So, but at least they're getting younger players up and through, whereas that I don't see that being the case with OG, where are they going to get these young guys from and where are these guys coming up, right? At least Dallas is growing the game and growing their talent.
Right. They can still think 2 or 3 seasons down the road if they cultivate this generation of players to become the seniors, 2 to 3 years' time. There's an investment in their team that we wouldn't have ever seen this season. And I guess they didn't have a lot of expectation on them, though. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good point, though, that you can see the building blocks and the framework of a good team to come for Dallas. But we expected more from OGDC, who's already now technically in their 3rd season.
And I'd throw kudos out to one of the young guys that I liked watching. And I'm not sure that he got a chance to play this weekend. But 2 weeks ago, Owen Sheehy played fullback and had some really nice carries. Not a very big kid, but a young kid, and carried really well into contact. I was pretty impressed with the way he made use of space. So I can't wait to see how Owen develops under, the OGDC umbrella. And let's hope that he continues to grow and develop, because again, we need more Americans to grow and develop in this.
Absolutely, and OGDC has done their part to be able to build those pathways. Obviously, it takes time for it to set roots and to see the fruits of that labor. But as it stands right now, it appears across the board that we're split on the decision of what might be the winners so far as the most entertaining providers of rugby in the US and Canada. Somebody, Kyle mentioned it was the AG's game. Scott had a different perspective, which was also very valid. NOLA and, of course, Seattle, a tight fixture, changing leads a few times, makes an exciting brand of rugby to be able to watch and enjoy. But I think ultimately importantly, while we were split on the best matches of the weekend, we were all in agreement that the teams that are certainly lacking in entertainment value and, of course, presence on the field and results is OG, DC, and Dallas, although of the two, we feel more optimistic for Dallas. So let's set that aside, gentlemen, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a few moments after we hear a few words from one of our sponsors.
With over 37 years of experience, American Rugby Outfitters have been dedicated to providing quality rugby gear to those who like to get dirty. The ARO team prides itself in delivering the highest quality rugby gear that will withstand the punishment rugby dishes out. Brands such as Adidas, Barbarian, Gilbert, Canterbury, and ProTech will deliver when the game gets tough. Whether you need team uniforms, boots, bags, field equipment, or swag for the Postmaster Social, ARO is your source for quality rugby gear. They can set up your club or business with a team store like they did for us to ensure every member looks as good as the pros. If the international game is your vibe, ARO will carry you across the line with officially licensed gear from the Eagles, Springboks, All Blacks, England, Ireland, and Wales, amongst others. Visit rugbygear.com and check out all that the folks from American Rugby Outfitters have to offer. Use the code RANT15 to get a 15% discount site-wide. As an added bonus, when the items in your cart are $100 or more, you get free shipping to anywhere in the continental United States. Don't forget to check out our line of Rugby Rant gear available exclusively at rugbygear.com. Don't forget to use RANT15 to get 15% off of your order site-wide. American Rugby Outfitters, dedicated to the toughest demands in the world's toughest game.
And welcome back, rugby fans. This is an important moment where we bring to you the opportunity to hear from one of our rugby insiders here in MLR. And what are we talking about? Well, it's the famous run, pass, or kick interviews with your team here from the Rugby Rant. Now, more importantly, who do we have in the hot seat? Well, we welcome back to the Rugby Rant somebody we first saw, Rob, back in 2020 as what appeared to be a much more naive young man. Now we see the rugged veteran of professional.
He's got the beard, he's grizzled, he's tough.
Yeah, got that GQ stubble going.
Yeah.
Huh? We like it, we like it. Patrick Madden, San Diego Elite. We welcome you to the show, my friend.
Appreciate you guys having me back on. It's been a while, back in the league, everything. So appreciate it. Love you guys. Love what you're doing. So thanks for having me.
Well, that makes one person out there that loves what we do. We appreciate it. You have to say that. Otherwise, we would not let you come on. Now that we got the pleasantries out the way, if you're not familiar as a fan and you're tuning in and watching this guy on screen, you're like, okay, he's wearing some Legion gear. Maybe he's connected to rugby. Let me tell you exactly how connected to rugby he is. This is a rich rugby resume for a relatively young guy, right? I say relatively because you were young the last time. Of course, you still are. So let's go through the rugby resume. High school rugby is where your journey truly began for you. All-American, University City High School. You've won awards as the best high school player in the U.S. You continue those honors into university level with Cal Poly, receiving an honor of being mentioned as a finalist for the Rudy Schultz Award. And if you're not familiar with what this means as a rugby player, you're recognized as among the best in your generation. So it's an incredible honor just to be among that elite that's certainly recognized for that achievement. You go on to be, of course, including yourself, or you drafted in as the 12th pick in round 1 to San Diego Legion. No surprise, you're a California kid. So yeah, it's been a really good home for you thus far. But even beyond that, you've now re-signed again with San Diego. You have USA Select honors, making your way to play with the Pacific Challenge, Uruguay, and USA honors with the U19s and U20s. That's a lot in a short time for a young man.
Yeah, it kind of took off there. I mean, it was, the season ended and I caught wind that I was in the player pool for the USA Selects to go to Uruguay. And then next thing you know, I'm on a flight to Miami and then a flight to Uruguay and then, we're playing. So it was a roller coaster, but and then with PR7s as well. So it was a lot of different stuff going on, but it was a fun summer at that. And, whenever you're playing rugby, it's a fun time. So I enjoyed it.
Excellent. Love it. We're going to dive into more about all of that and your background and some insight as to your experiences at San Diego through the course of this interview. But before we go further, it's best we let our fans know how it works. So for that, I'm going to hand you over to Rob Hammerschmidt.
Thanks, Tyan. I want to give a huge thank you to Patrick because he's always been a good friend of the show. Did a few promo spots for us as well. From the beach, made me very jealous. I think it was a really poor weather period for Chicago, so I was super jealous, but it was awesome to see Patrick enjoying himself in his native California and more specifically San Diego. But let's get to the task at hand. The Run, Pass, or Kick interview works a little like this for those who are uninitiated. We're going to throw some questions at Patrick, and he will have the opportunity, just like any good rugby player, to use his deft rugby skills, and he can run, pass, or kick the question. So we're going to throw the questions. We'll prompt him with run, pass, or kick, and he'll tell us, or you, the crowd, whether he's going to run with a question, pass a question, or kick a question. What that means is this: if he runs with a question, he's going to take it straight up. He's going to handle it himself and answer the question right away there. However, if you choose to pass a question, it means that a question is a little hot to handle. It doesn't want to get himself in trouble with Nonu or Rob Shaw, of course, and he's going to pass that question and let somebody else handle that. Or he can have a little fun with us. And I know Patrick is a cheeky bugger on the field, so I'm pretty sure he'll get a little bit cheeky with us here on screen, and he can have fun with us and kick a question, and that means that he's going to want us to answer the question in a way that we think he would answer it, and he can direct his kick to Ty or myself, or he can just keep us guessing and make us work a little bit for our money, and whoever asks the question will have to field the question. So, Patrick Madden, are you ready for the Run, Pass, or Kick challenge?
Let's let it rip. I'm ready.
All right. So for those that are watching, we're going to put up a picture right now. And here we have a wonderful picture. Looks like it is from the preseason. A bunch of the Legion boys hanging out, enjoying themselves. So here's the question: run, pass, or kick, Patrick. Here's the great photo that you posted on Twitter with the Legion boys in a cookout preseason. So are those really soft drinks and water, or are those cans secretly hiding adult beverages?
I'm honest. I'll run with it. That's a soda. That's a nice. What do I have in there? It's probably a Coke, 7-Up, something like that. And
that's right.
Yeah, we're getting right into it. So it's pre-season. We can't have the bevies beforehand. We still had stuff to do. You don't do that until you celebrate a win. But those are a good group of guys there with Tommy Marani. You got Matthias Frey, and then I think that really shows what we are as a team. It's like we all really do love each other, and we're a good group of friends. I think you don't get that with a lot of teams. You have little fractions and clicks, but with the Legion, especially this year, we have a bunch of guys that care for each other, and I think that comes out on the field. You see us playing for each other, whether it's a scuffle with another team. Everyone's going to be there for that guy, or it comes down to it. I think care is a big thing for me, and that's kind of what I've taken in this year. And we all care about each other a lot. So, and I think that photo is a good, it showcases that.
That's really, really great to hear. I mean, with the American rugby playing community, it's a common theme, right? You play for a club and you really enjoy your mates, and you play for one another. You got each other's backs, and they have yours. So it's great to see that it's carried over into the Legion camp this year.
Right. I like it. If you get into a scuffle, it's you and your 14 big brothers.
And I know I'm one of the smaller guys. So it's nice to have guys like Ben Grant coming in at 6'8", over the top to beat the Tamala. They're nice guys to have in your corner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Certainly so. And, and it shows out in the field that, like you said, the results have been pretty positive of late for San Diego, and we're going to be talking more about the culture as we progress further. But it certainly has been impressive this season thus far when you compare it to last season, and I'm sure many would agree, even those in the camp for San Diego. So something is certainly working right now at a surface level for the rest of the fans. They could see that. Let's jump into the next question. Run, pass, or kick? Talking about your background here. you have grown up playing rugby in the San Diego area. Now, that includes playing high school rugby at University City High School, Cal Poly, as I mentioned before in your rugby resume. So here lies my question, though. In addition to all this experience, and of course, I'm including the Legion, most of your experience has been in the California area is the point there. So in addition, you have been heavily involved in youth rugby development. How much of the youth rugby scene has changed over the last decade? How much has it grown, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'll run with that one as well. And because I've seen it firsthand. I mean, because my first training session, I was 5-6 years old with the Young Aztecs, first club in San Diego. And there wasn't any, I was the youngest guy. There was no one else to play with. So I was playing with the U10s. Obviously, it was still touch back then, but there was no one. It was always playing ahead. Oh, you don't have a team. And to now, I went out to a local session the other day, and there was what, 30, 40, like 8-year-olds just running around. And,
wow, that's good.
Coach never took it out of me. I think I'd rather go play 80 minutes than have to deal with them for 2 hours.
That's more of a fitness, strength, and conditioning mentally.
Mentally, it was all up here. But it just goes to show how much people around San Diego, especially in Southern California and especially San Diego, care about the sport. And it really has been a hotbed. I think I would have said it's been a hotbed 10 years ago. But now you see it. Now we're a leading force in growing rugby in the United States. And I'm lucky to be a very small part of that. And anytime I can give back, or, guys like Ryan Mattias, Nate Osberger are constantly in the community trying to grow the game. It's those guys that make the difference. And if you have a professional player, someone from the Legion, and this goes for any team in the MLR, and they're coming out and working with local kids, that's who's going to pay their parents are going to buy the tickets, and that's who's going to be filling the stands. So, it all comes back around, but it feels so good to give back to the community I grew up in. Because I see, little kids, girls and boys, they're just like me. And, who knows what they'll be in the next, 15 years, whatever it is.
Yeah, I got to say, Patrick, I've heard a lot of great things about what you guys in the Legion are doing in that area, especially for youth rugby. And a funny side note, I actually had a friend of mine from high school, a young lady, she's not young anymore. She's my age, so she's old, but she still looks terrific. But nevertheless, shout out to Jen Schmidt. She had seen the show and she's like, "Oh, you play rugby?" I mean, yeah, we're gonna have, where you at? She's like, "San Diego." She said, "My kids play too." I said, "Oh, there's a great young guy out there, American talent. You gotta go out to one of the camps and meet Patrick Madden." She goes, "We already did that. He's a great guy. We love him. The kids worked with him. He had a really great impact to kids." So, just so you know, your reputation precedes you as far as the quality of character and ability to work with the young kids. And it's great to see it. You're, again, a wonderful ambassador of sport. So a lot of thanks directed to you, my friend. No worries. So let's get into the next phase, because I want to talk a little bit more about this, but get in a more personal way. Run, pass, or kick, based upon your social media posts, family is clearly important to you. I don't think you have your own children, but I always see you carry somebody else's kids. So I follow your social media. So the question is, what kind of role have they played in your development as a professional rugby player? And talk a little bit about the support that they provide for you as you continue your development in your professional life.
I don't think there's any way I could pass or kick this, so I'll run with it. No, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Rob. That is my rock. My family is everything to me. And that baby you see is actually my nephew, my older brother, James. That's his little kid, Joey. And luckily, that was the best part about COVID, was the fact that I got 2 years just to hang out with him and be in lockdown with him. So that's a blessing in itself. But my family is, go down the line. My dad's my best friend, my first coach. My mom was the president of my youth rugby club. Going on, she had no ties to it, just a kid that loved the sport, and they all bought in. And they've bought in since I was 5 years old, and they've bought in now. And our family's kind of grown around it. My siblings might throw up in their mouth a bit, but it's been a big, my parents' best friends have come from, my friends and from the Aztecs and stuff like that. And they've really just grown all together. And we see, maybe I'm the one in the MLR, but everyone's still playing. Everyone's still, the people who send me the messages before game day, it's my family, my old coaches, my lovely girlfriend, and everyone there. So the support is through the community, and that all started. My first community was my family, and I don't think a game day goes by where I don't have my sister, my brothers shooting me a message, telling me how much they love me, regardless of the outcome. And that's something I write in my book before any game. I write down. Carlo Denison actually tipped me onto this last year before I made my debut, was that write down everything that won't change regardless of how you play. Because at the end of the game, no matter if you did terrible, if you lost the game, those things will still be there. And the top of that list is that I'll have a family, I'll have a girlfriend that love me regardless of how I play. And that is something that has stuck with me definitely coming into this year. And I still do it today before every game. So family's everything to me.
Great words of wisdom there. I like it. And Carlo Denison, a great, fan or we're a great fan of him, I should say. He's been with us a couple of times on the show. Those are wise words. I like that, And I love the fact that you highlighted that, your first community was your family. Rugby's a team sport, so I guess that was your first team, right? And still is now. Yeah. It's so great to be able to see how the circles grow because of the love of sport. And that's what rugby is about. It's bringing communities together, bringing people together, the experiences that we enjoy together. So powerful and lasting. And for you, it's become your life and the people around you embrace that too. So really, really good to be able to see that. And I love those words that you also shared from Carlo Denison, through you. Really powerful. A lot of people can learn some lessons about that too, as they reach higher levels in rugby or struggle in anything in life when they put too much pressure on themselves.
Definitely.
So let me dive into the next one over here. And this is an interesting one. This is a good question. I like this. Rob, kudos to Rob on this one. I like this. So every team has a certain vibe about it, an energy, an air, and grace about them. So with that in mind, let's set the scene here. Then you're walking down the road and you happen to pass French superstar Antoine Dupont, right? Superstar in rugby, right? And he actually turns to you, and here it comes. He recognizes you in your Legion attire you're just so happily wearing right now. He stops you and says, I'm considering experiencing rugby in America and have heard about the Legion. Why should I consider coming to San Diego to play rugby? What would you say?
So I know what I would say.
Sure. What would you say to him?
But I'm actually going to kick this back to you, Ty.
Oh, okay.
Because I know why San Diego's great. I've lived it my entire life. So it's easy.
Right. Okay.
What do you think attracts the players that we've had, like the Nanus, Chris Robinson? Why do you think they want to come to San Diego?
Ty should have had to say this, Antoine Dupont's question in a French accent, but we'll let that go for right now.
Don't throw me under the bus, Rob. Okay. So I think it's because the rugby is so powerful. Is that close? Is that really bad? Do I get a bonus point for trying? Okay, so all jokes aside, it really is a great culture. I mean, you're talking about, first of all, one of the teams that's kind of the building blocks of professional rugby here in the US, even before the MLR, right? With the previous pro rugby, so there's deep roots and there's great community that's been supporting it. First of all, it's great weather all year round. You can play rugby outside pretty much the entire year. That's a big bonus point right there. Unlike here in the Midwest where I am. But more importantly, it's a gateway for players to be able to enjoy growing a sport in a country that they might very well want to be a part of. And rugby players, like you said, are very powerfully connected to the sense of community. And being embraced by a new community and being one of those great significant contributors, feeling like you're a part of building something new and perhaps also building a legacy, imparting your strengths and experiences onto other, where you have direct influence over an entirely new generation that could help grow rugby globally as well, is very attractive. So there's a lot of secondary and tertiary benefits to being a player of that type of caliber, coming to the US, learning something new about the game as well, because you're doing everything you do, but in a completely different way, and helping it grow at the same time. What do you think?
It took the words right out of my mouth. I had that written down, actually. That's what I was going to say.
Bonus point for the French accent. I do apologize to every Frenchman, though, if that was really
You can't forget that Antoine Dupont would probably say that he was looking forward to get a home cooked meal every week at the Madden household because they live so close.
No doubt. We had the boys over the other day. Mom Madden was quick. They showed up there on a vacation, and then they came back to 10 rugby players in there, and we were back up down south around my parents' place, and then boom, Mom was straight in the kitchen. Appetizers were out. Nice. You don't have to do it. It's just like, but I want to. It's just. She loves.
How do you feed 10 hungry rugby players? That alone is quite a large expense.
Yeah, it adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's awesome to hear. And again, I think it sends a message that has addressed a couple of the questions before. Just what family means to you on a personal level, but also just how the families connect to members of the Legion. We've seen that Rob Shaw's had one of his children born here in America too. And again, I think it really connects him with the local community, which is great to see. I want to talk more about you as a player as we progress through the Run, Pass, or Kick interview, Patrick. So with this next question, let me dive into that a bit. You made your debut for the Legion at scrum half last season. Having said that, you primarily played fly half in college and played on the wing for the USA Selects and have experience at fullback. So Run, Pass, or Kick, where does the Legion coaching staff see you playing moving forward as you continue to develop with the Legion?
Yeah, so I'll run with that one. So last year we were put in a tough position, and the way things were working out, it looked like I was going to be working at 9 due to Nate Osberger picking up an injury and just some other stuff coming on. And as a young guy, I think you fall into a role where it's like you want to get on the field. And luckily for me, I like to think of myself kind of like as a Swiss Army knife. I could do multiple things if you need me to. But the positions I play are 10 and 15. Those are my positions. But like for the APC, the way our system was running with the USA Selects, I was out on the wing. But then I still handled the kicking duties. And so it's very strange. And I'm pretty adaptable to do what is best for the team, because it's always team first, and I'm willing to do anything I can for the success of the team. But I consider myself a fly half first and a fullback second, and that's where I've been with the Legion. This season, those are the only two positions I've played, is fly half and fullback. And so, I think that's with head coach Danny Lee, and that's where I'm at. And so there have been a couple times this season where it's, Patch, like, we need a wing cover. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, I will do it, but that's not my position. But anything for the team. But if I had to stamp it down and tell everyone, I'm a fly half fullback.
I like it. I mean, it's good to be able to know where your strengths are, but at the same time, it's so important, as you said, to be versatile. Yep. You have plenty of opportunity to be able to grow as a player by taking yourself out of a comfort zone. And it's so clear that you're happy to be able to do that when the opportunity is there and you need it. And that's the strength of having, a teammate like you. And you want to be able to have 15 of those guys out on the field, and of course the greater roster too. And that's where the culture comes in though too, is everybody's in it for the team. And you certainly have proven that, and you will continue to do so. And that's why they obviously asked you to come back for another year.
Yeah.
Actually, that's an important question. I don't know if I know. So, are you, this is ad lib though, but will you be rejoining for another season, or is it possibly extended beyond another season already?
My contract for right now is just for this season. But who knows what next year will bring. So
maybe I love
San Diego and I love it here.
Will be coming here.
Never know, but I'm enjoying every moment I've got in San Diego. So we'll see what happens next.
Well said then, Patrick Madden. Again, a reminder to our fans at home, you can continue to be able to enjoy content just like this at our new home on patreon.com/Rugby Rant. And of course, if you wanted to be able to learn more about Patrick Madden, you'll have to visit us there. And for only as little as $3 per month, you can get all of the rest of this interview and more with our many, many great opportunities in the rants and interviews. But for now, It's important to be able to thank you for watching this episode here on TRN and our social media. You can continue to be able to follow us weekly under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod. We thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you at patreon.com for more.